Congratulations on choosing the router for use in your workshop. You'll be pleased to know that the router is the most versatile, effective, portable power tool available to today's woodworker. With the router, you'll be able to make fancy edges on tabletops, create traditional woodworking joinery, and do lettering or numbering for personalizing your projects. Some of the topics which will be discussed in this video are router features, safety, cutting bits, and accessories that are used for woodworking applications. There are different router models available, and whether you own one or several, it's important to use the correct one for your work. Let's take a look at some router features found on different models. The horsepower should be adequate to meet the workload. Use a 5/8 to 1 horsepower router for light to medium work, such as cutting shallow dados, trimming laminates, or working on soft woods. Use a 1 to 1.5 horsepower router for continuous work over long periods of time and for deeper cuts in hard wood. And use a 3 horsepower plunge router for heavy-duty work with man-made materials or hard and soft woods. The plunging feature allows internal cuts to be made more efficiently. For instance, when making deep mortise and tenon or stop dado cuts in tables or furniture frames. Electronic speed control is an internal feedback system which senses workload and maintains consistent power during work. Variable RPM speeds can be set for different materials or bit sizes. Correct RPM makes router work easier, safer, and more efficient. A shaft locking mechanism prevents accidental starts and makes changing bits safer and easier. The collet and collet nut prevent the bit from drifting up and down. The depth adjusting ring allows you to change the depth of cut of the bit. Chip shields give a protective and clear view of the work area and reduce the dust and chips thrown toward the operator. And an internal light offers better visibility. The most important part of using any woodworking tool is safety. We'll cover some of the main safety issues now, but remember, before beginning any work, always read the operator's manual. Some points are: wear the proper safety equipment, safety eye guards, hearing protectors, and dust masks. Even when wearing eye protection, never bend over and work with the router at eye level. Work at an upright position with the router comfortably in front of you. Wear proper work clothes. Don't wear loose clothes or jewelry. Long hair should be tied back and tucked into a cap. Roll up your sleeves. Never work when you are tired, and absolutely never work if you have taken any medications, drugs, or alcohol. Inspect the cord. If it is frayed or a part is damaged, do not use the router. Have it repaired or replaced at an authorized service center. Make sure that the router is not locked in the on position before plugging the cord to power. And watch where the cord is when the router is in use. Keep it away from the bit. When changing bits, drape the cord over the work area so that the plug is in view. Make sure that the bit is clear of the workpiece before turning the router on. When you are working, keep the work area as clutter-free and clean as possible. Unnecessary tools and lumber should be put away, and clean up excessive wood dust and chips. Secure the workpiece to a work surface. Use clamps or a vise to hold the work on a secure surface. Maintain good footing and balance at all times, and don't overextend your reach with the router. When using a template guide bushing, unplug the router and hand-turn the bit to check that it freely turns inside the guide bushing tube. Never use a router if the bit is touching the inside of the guide bushing. Always push or feed the router in one direction on the workpiece. This is referred to as feed direction. The general rule for feed direction is always move from left to right when hand-holding the router, so that you'll be moving with the direction of cutter rotation. If you move against cutter rotation, it will be difficult to control the router. Feed rate, or the rate at which the router is pushed when you make a cut, is also important. If the feed rate is too fast or too slow, the cutting results will be poor. A feed rate that is too fast can leave rough or torn wood. On the other hand, a feed rate that is too slow can burn or burnish the wood, overheat the motor, or burn the bit. Feed rate will vary depending upon type and size of bit, the depth of cut, router horsepower, and the kind of wood being cut. With different bits and woods, you'll become familiar with the various speeds and develop a sense of correct feed rate. Router versatility gets exciting when you explore the variety of bits available to today's woodworker. From grooves to edging to framing, it's simply a matter of changing bits. For more efficiency and cost-effectiveness, bits are made of different materials: high-speed steel bits, tungsten carbide bits, and Excalibur tungsten carbide bits. High-speed steel bits are precision ground of hardened steel and heat-treated. They have very sharp cutting edges, and although they aren't as hard and wear-resistant as tungsten carbide, they are as sharp as tungsten carbide bits. The advantage of high-speed steel is affordability. High-speed steel bits are useful for most natural woods, especially softwoods. Some high-speed steel bits have interchangeable arbors and bearing sizes. This is economical because different diameter bearings permit different cuts from a single bit. Tungsten carbide tipped bits are extremely tough. These are made with silver alloy to braze the carbide tips to their alloy steel bodies. In fact, it is possible that carbide bits can last up to 15 times longer than high-speed steel bits. Tungsten carbide bits are an excellent choice when working in hard woods and man-made materials. An economical feature of this type of carbide bit is that it is also available with interchangeable arbors and bearings. Excalibur tungsten carbide bits are professional production quality bits that are designed for more continuous service. These bits have tough alloy steel bodies, thicker carbide tips, and integral 1/4 inch diameter steel shanks. Excalibur edging bits have attached ball bearing pilot. They can be used on man-made materials and all kinds of wood. Now let's look at how bits are used and divide the bits into 3 groups based on their application. Our first group, the edge-shaping bits, are perhaps the easiest to use, and they certainly produce the most visually dramatic results. By using an edge bit with a ball-bearing pilot, it is simply a matter of adjusting the depth of cut and then cutting along an edge. This sort of work can be done on a straight or curved edge. Edge-shaping bits are easy to use because they simply run along the shape of the workpiece. No template or fence is required. Most edge-shaping bits produce a decorative profile. Some types of edge-shaping bits are cove, corner round, OG with a fillet, Rabbet, Roman OG, or classic bits. A cove bit cuts a concave profile cut into the edge. The corner round bit cuts a radius shape on the edge. The OG with fillet, Roman OG, and classic bits all cut different shape patterns in an edge. The Rabbet bit is a slightly different type of edging bit. The Rabbet bit produces a square-shaped cut on the edge of the board. This square cut can be used for decoration or for joinery applications. Surface or grooving bits are the second group of bits. Basically, the surface or grooving bits work either on the surface or edge of a workpiece. They differ from edging bits in that they have no ball-bearing pilot and must be controlled in some other fashion. Typically, surface bits are used with a clamped fence, multi-purpose guide, router table fences and miter guides, or guide bushings and templates. Typical surface or grooving bits are OG end cutting, core box, straight bits, butt hinge mortising, V-groove chamfering, and veining bits. The classic fluting bits produce a molding-type pattern on the surface of a workpiece. Core box bits make a round-shaped cut. Straight bits and butt hinge bits produce square-edged cuts with flat bottoms. V-groove bits make a V-shaped pattern. And veining bits are thin bits which make straight cuts with rounded bottoms in the work. The third group, the specialty bits, are unique bits because they meet some of the criteria of the first two groups, but are specialized enough to warrant their own grouping. Specialty bits include panel raising, radius end cove, the crown molding set, box joint bit, OG edge rail and stile set, and the tongue and groove set, most of which must be used in a router table. Panel raising and radius end cove bits are used to shape the edges of the panels that fit within a cabinet door frame. The crown molding set is used to make various shapes of molding for furniture and house trim. The box joint bit is used to make interlocking drawer or box corners. The OG edge rail and stile set is used to make the grooves and interlocking pieces in cabinet door frames or wainscoting. The tongue and groove set is used to make the matching elements of the traditional tongue and groove joint found in tabletops and solid wood cabinet doors. Slotting cutters are arbor bits which make cuts in the workpiece parallel to the router. A typical application is cutting grooves for splines. Dovetail bits can be used to make dovetail-shaped grooves in the surface of a workpiece or dovetail-shaped sockets at the end of a workpiece. Flush and bevel trimming bits are used to trim plastic laminates and other materials. And key slot bits plunge into a workpiece and make key slot-shaped cuts for hanging picture frames, cabinets, or other wall-mounted pieces. You can either buy individual bits of your choosing or selected bit sets. Now that we've looked at bits, your next consideration should be router accessories. Some of the more popular router accessories are router tables, multi-purpose edge guides, bisket joinery kits, template guide bushings, dovetail and box joint templates, and letter and number templates. One of the most popular and useful router accessories is the router table. It offers both the benefits of the hand-controlled router and the router as a stationary power tool. Router tables help control the work by providing a flat table, fence, and miter guide. The router is mounted on the table with the cutter pointed up. The advantages of using a router table are numerous. The fence and miter guide permit smooth and reliable feeding motion. Router table fences and miter guides are easy to adjust. Production cutting is less fatiguing because the workpieces can be slid across the table. Another router accessory is the multi-purpose router guide, which attaches to the router base and is used to make controlled handheld cuts, such as repetitive cuts parallel to an edge, inside corner cuts, shaping and grooving along contoured surfaces, or circular compass-type cuts. Bisket joinery is a new and innovative form of joinery which can be used as an alternative to dowels and other joinery methods, such as tongue and grooves. The bisket joiner accessory kit fits to the base of the router and, with the use of a slot-cutting bit, makes half-moon-shaped cuts at selected locations. After matching cuts are made in adjoining boards, biscuit-shaped plates are glued into the cuts, and the boards are joined. Other router accessories include templates and guide bushings. A template is a pattern fixture that the router can follow. In order to follow the pattern, the router must have a guide bushing mounted to the underside of the base. A guide bushing is a tube oversized to the bit. When the router follows the template pattern, it is really the guide bushing touching against the template. Typical templates used with guide bushings are dovetail and box joint templates and sign-making template kits. Dovetail, hand-cut style dovetail, and box joint templates permit making dovetail or box joint corner constructions for use in drawers, cabinets, and boxes. The letter and number template is a useful accessory for cutting letters and numbers. Clamp the template onto the workpiece and use a handheld router and guide bushing to guide the bit within the template. For improved visibility when doing freehand work, you can use a special sub-base specifically designed as an aid for lettering. Once you have invested in a router and a collection of bits, it's a good idea to store them away in a proper fashion. There are storage cases for routers and special cases for storing bits. In the next section, we will talk about router applications. The router is without a doubt a versatile tool. Its range of applications is only limited by bits, accessories, and your imagination. Let's look at some router applications in detail, and then explore the router setup, bits, and other accessories as they are needed for specific jobs. Router applications can be divided into 6 types: joinery, decorative edges and surfaces, edge-to-edge assembly, carcass construction, frame construction, and specialty work. As we progress, each type of router application will be shown with a representative construction. Joinery is the basic procedure of making a smooth edge, either straight or curved. The router is ideal for preparing edges. First, it offers portability on large workpieces. Second, it can follow almost any pattern. And third, router bits produce square and very clean edges. Now let's look at a router application that requires a 1/2 inch straight bit, clamps, and a straight piece of wood for a fence. We'll begin work by trimming the edge of a piece of plywood. Make pencil marks approximately 1/16 inch in from the workpiece edge. Make parallel marks where the fence will be located, and then set and clamp the fence at these alignment marks. Guide the router against the fence to make a straight cut. The plywood edge is now smoothly trimmed. Use the same procedure to make a curved shape. Begin by cutting a curved template to match the desired pattern. To make the work easier, trim any excess wood away from the workpiece with a bandsaw or jigsaw. Then clamp the template in position and follow its shape with the router. If the workpiece shape is composed of small curves or intricate patterns, make a template pattern and install a guide bushing in the router. We are now using the guide bushing instead of the router base as a guide. Guide the router into the workpiece, and the template guide bushing will rub against the template, and the bit will cut the desired pattern. To cut a round disc up to 24 inches in diameter, use the multi-purpose guide as a trammel point. Attach the multi-purpose guide with the trammel point attachment to the router. Drill a 1/8 inch hole in the center of the workpiece and insert the trammel point. Adjust to the desired circle size and set the bit to make shallow cuts. Move the router in a counterclockwise direction and take several passes to finish the cut. Remember, work against the router bit rotation. The router table can be used in a manner similar to a jointer. Use a router table with either a split fence or an adjustable jointing fence. Install a 1/2 inch diameter bit in the router. Adjust the fence so that it is set slightly in from the bit's cutting edge. Then adjust the outfeed side so that it compensates for the amount of wood removed, approximately 1/8 inch. Keep the workpiece snug against the infeed fence and push the workpiece into the bit. Be sure to keep the workpiece against the outfeed fence as it exits the bit. Decorative edge work is one of the easiest of router applications. All that is required is a router and a piloted bit. The choice of the edging profile is a matter of personal taste. For this demonstration, we have chosen the classic bit for the outside edge of this oval picture frame. Adjust the router and classic bit for the desired depth of cut. The depth of cut selected depends on the thickness of the workpiece or the depth of the decorative edge which you desire. Now clamp the frame and make the cut. For decorative surface work, let's first make fluting that can be attached to the edge of a bookcase. Once again, personal taste and style will guide you in the selection of the preferred bit. Some common fluting bits are V-groove, veining, OG-N cutting, point cutting OG, straight, and core box. For our work, we chose the core box. Also, we'll be using the router table. Let's start by installing a 1/4 inch core box bit in the router. Set the depth of cut at approximately 3/16 of an inch. Mark the locations on the workpiece where you want to cut the fluting. With the workpiece against the fence, adjust the fence so that the mark is aligned with the center of the bit. Make the cut, and then turn the board end for end and make another cut. Now reposition the fence for the next cut. Repeat the cutting process until all flutes are cut. Then saw the fluted strip into lengths and attach to the edges of a bookcase or shelves. To make crown molding, use the 7-piece crown molding bit set and a router table. The molding is made by using different bits for various parts of the molding profile. Once the router cut profile is finished, the edges can be bevel cut on a table saw. Then the crown molding can be cut to length for your project. Edge-to-edge assembly of wood allows you to interlock and join together any number of boards to make a wider surface area. Typically, wood strips are glued together to make tabletops. The first method of edge-to-edge assembly uses a piloted slotting cutter bit. Although the slotting cutter bit can be used in a freehand router, it is advisable to use a router table. You will have better control of the bit. Set the depth of cut to the middle of the workpiece. If you have moved the fence to adjust the cutter, now move it back to the operating position. Press the workpiece flat on the router table and feed it into the bit. Repeat this for all edges. Rip a strip of wood on the table saw. Glue the workpiece edges and the strip, now called a spline, into the grooves for assembly. Another edge-to-edge joint is the traditional tongue and groove. By using the 5-piece tongue and groove bit, board edges can be cut into a tongue and groove shape. Set the bit for cutting the tongue boards first. Then use one of the tongue boards to adjust the height of the bit and cut the groove boards. The Bisket joinery accessory offers an ideal method for edge joining boards together and keeping them in perfect alignment. Begin by fastening the Bisket joinery accessory to the router base. Next, mark the locations for the cuts on both board edges. Biskets are available in 3 sizes, numbers 0, 10, and 20. Next, adjust the Bisket joinery accessory for the bisket you are using. Adjust the cutter to the approximate center of the board. If you are using a number 20 bisket, plunge the bit into the workpiece at the right side 20 mark and slide the router to the left side 20 mark. Then pull the router straight back. Repeat this procedure at all marked locations. Carcass construction is the basic framing or assembly of structures such as bookcases and cabinets. The joints used most often in these types of constructions are dados and rabbets. The dado is a groove cut across the grain direction and is commonly used for holding shelves. Lay out lines on the workpiece representing the location of the dado. Install a straight bit in the router and set the depth of cut. When making an internal or stop dado, use a standard or plunge router. The plunge router will give you cleaner cuts. If you are using a plunge router, set the depth of cut on the router using the built-in stops. Raise the bit clear of the workpiece. Place the router base against the fence and turn the router on. Plunge the router straight down and make the cut. At the end of the cut, release the downward pressure and raise the router straight up. Grooves are long channels cut in the direction of the wood grain. Grooves are used for securing internal dividers or inset back panels. Rabbets are notch-like recesses cut at the edge of a board. Typically, the back panel of a bookcase or other similar construction is set into a rabbet so the back can be flush to the side edge. There are 3 methods for cutting rabbet joints. For the first technique, install a piloted rabbet bit in the router. Set the depth of cut of the bit and route against the workpiece edge. For the second technique, install a straight bit and the multi-purpose edge guide on the router. Set the depth of cut of the bit and adjust the fence on the multi-purpose guide to its proper position. Now you can route the rabbet. The third method uses the router table and either a piloted rabbet bit or a straight bit. This method is well suited for smaller constructions, such as small bookcases or wall-hung cabinets. Interlocking carcass construction visually enhances solid wood cabinets, boxes, and drawers. Typical interlocking carcass constructions are dovetails and box joints. To make these joints, however, requires the accurate use of templates. To illustrate both box and drawer constructions, we will show 5 differently constructed drawers. The standard dovetail, the hand-cut style dovetail, the finger joints, the drawer and box joints, and the blind or butted corner. The standard dovetail and the hand-cut dovetail are made in a similar manner, except different templates are used. To make a standard dovetail, use a 12-inch template. For a hand-cut dovetail, use an 8-inch template. To make dovetails, you will need to install a guide bushing on the router base. Notice that the template edges are notched for making either 1/4 or 1/2 inch size dovetails. Both the front and the side workpieces are placed in the template and are cut at the same time. One workpiece is clamped horizontally and the other is clamped vertically. There are 2 essential steps to setting up the dovetail template. First, the bit must be set to a specific depth of cut. And second, the 2 workpieces must be properly positioned against each other and against the side stops. The owner's manual for the dovetail template has complete instructions and tips for making dovetails, so please refer to it for specific setup information. Finger joints are another template-made joint that can be used for solid wood constructions. To make 1/4 or 1/2 inch box joints, install the accessory box joint template. Again, please consult the owner's manual for the box joint template for specific information on setup and operating procedures. Frame construction is one of the most important methods for building furniture. Most frame joints are made in solid wood, and the 2 joint parts have 2 different shapes that interlock and give strength to the joint. Typical frame constructions are cabinet door frames, chairs, table legs, and rails. The most common frame joints are mortise and tenon, hidden splines, and rail and stile. Let's take a look at how the mortise and tenon is made. Lay out the location of the mortise and tenon. Clamp the workpiece on a bench vise sandwiched between 2 2x4s. You can use a standard router or a plunge router, a plunge-cutting straight bit, and a straight guide. Attach the straight guide to the router base and set the correct depth of cut. Center the bit over the mortise location, turn the router on, and plunge cut into the workpiece. If the mortise is deep, make several shallow plunge cuts before finish cutting the mortise. Tenons are the cut-down ends of another board that will fit within the mortise. There are easy methods for making tenons. One method requires a router table with the bit set for the length of the tenon. Clamp the workpiece to the sliding push block flush to the fence and make the cuts. The rail and stile is a spectacular framing joint. Not only does it lock up the corners and the panel in a cabinet door, but it looks attractive and professionally made. When making rails and stiles, there are a few important things to note. There are 2 cutting bits in the rail and stile set. Each is used alone, and both bits are used with a ball-bearing pilot. The workpiece thickness should be no more than 3/4 inch. You'll need to use the router table, the router table fence, and the miter guide. You'll have to make 2 different cuts on the workpieces, a center groove and a shaped edge profile. To interlock the corners, the groove cutting bit is repositioned to make a tongue on the end of the rails, and the profile bit is repositioned to make a cut in the center of the workpiece. Let's install the grooving bit and make the first cut. Move the fence back enough to permit the pilot to control the cutting depth. Positioning the fence as close to the bearing as possible serves as a backup for smoother and safer cuts. Keep the workpiece firmly on the table and slide it into the bit. Using the groove as a reference, readjust the bit so that it will cut the bottom edge of the workpiece. Be sure that the miter guide is square to the fence and use it to cut the end of the workpiece. Now, remove the grooving bit from the router. Install the profile bit in the router and set the depth of cut. Cut a profile on the front edges of the workpiece. Using a cut piece as a reference, readjust the bit so that it will make a matching cut in the rail ends. Use the miter guide to make these cuts. We now have 4 frame parts with shaped front edges and grooves on the inside edges for holding a panel board. And we have rail ends which have a corresponding shape to interlock with the stiles. Bisket joinery has revolutionized the way wood pieces are joined together. They are stronger, more accurately positioned, and are easier to do than doweling. As a framing construction, bisket joinery can be used to reinforce butt joints or mitered corners. Butt the pieces together and make a pencil mark across their common edge. Clamp the workpiece to your bench, turn on the router, and set the bisket accessories alignment mark at the pencil mark. Plunge the router bit straight into the workpiece. This works for any construction, whether it's a door casing with 90-degree corner cuts or a frame with 45-degree mitered corners. The bisket accessory can also be used to make corner constructions on boxes. Another style of interlocking joinery is the Boxjoint corner joint. This is made on the router table and is cut with the Boxjoint bit. You'll need to do some trial and error setup with scrap wood to find the correct depth of cut and the location of the fence. For example, if the sideboards are 1/2 inch thick, then set the fence 1/2 inch from the outside edge of the bit. The front board of the drawer is cut horizontally using a miter guide and fence. The sideboards are cut vertically using the push block on the fence. Specialty work is the most single-purpose application done with the router. For example, you can trim plastic laminate materials by installing a flush trimming bit. Oversized laminate is glued to the workpiece. After the glue has set, the ball-bearing piloted flush trimming bit is installed. Simply guide the router into the excess laminate overhang and trim away. Another specialty application is using the key slot bit. This unusually shaped bit is designed to make a keyhole-shaped cut in the back of small cabinets or frames for pictures or mirrors. To make the key slot, first draw the key slot location on the back of your project. Using a clamped wooden fence as a guide, lower the bit into the workpiece until the head of the 3/8 inch diameter bit has gone straight in, approximately 5/16 of an inch. Then move the router and make a narrow-looking cut. Hold the router steady and turn it off. Then remove the bit from the cut. Our next specialty application is making the raised panel door. This panel will have sloping edges and is intended to fit within the edge grooves of the rail and stile frame. The panel raising bit is a large diameter bit that must be used on a router table. Also, 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch is the best thickness for the panel board. The thicker the wood, the greater the number of cuts that must be made to achieve the proper edge thickness. Set the fence over the center line of the bit and raise the bit to make a shallow first cut on all edges. For the cleanest cuts, make the first cuts across the grain and then cut in the long grain direction. As you can see, the router is one of the most versatile and effective portable tools available to today's woodworker. When used in conjunction with the many accessories and bits you've just seen, it's the perfect tool for woodworking. So go ahead now and use your router for all your woodworking projects. The only limit is your own imagination. And good luck!